I have a piece of black walnut here. It's not very big. It's about 9 by 8.5, and it's somewhere around 3 1/4 to 3.5 inches thick. So it's going to be pretty shallow. I had this picked out a couple of months ago and I didn't get to it, but had it sitting in a corner. I looked down and I said, well, I wanted to turn it back then, so I'm going to turn it today. I already put a flat spot in there and a hole for a worm screw. So obviously we're going to see if we can leave the bark on there. I want to get it mounted up on the worm screw and I'll be right back and we'll start turning it. Okay, I'm going to start cutting from the top here. The bark on this piece is very chunky and it comes off pretty easy. So I'm going to see if we can keep it on by coming down here. After we get that done, we'll come back down here and create a shape. Doing about 600 RPM. If I didn't say, this is a 5/8 bowl gouge that I'm using. So I meant to mention that another reason I'm making a live edge is this was a very thin blank. All the heartwood on the bottom would get turned away if I didn't make it a live edge. I haven't really decided on what I want to do with these ends. I think I'll turn them until they're round. Make a little boat shape. All right, we got it. There, now I have more showing here. Not too bad there. Might do a little bit more. I don't know if this is going to work out, but I'm going to try something. Well, I'm going to go with it. See how it looks when we get done. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this off, mark for a recess, and then I'll see what we might want to do right here. Probably make that a little bit smaller. Oops, looks like I have a little uh-oh here. Wait till the end and see what I do. Looks like it got a little bit big, but it should be fine. Yeah, it should be, he says. I'm going to go ahead and cut some of this off. That's a little bit too wide. Alright, I'm going to work on this shape a little bit. It's definitely going to be different, but why not? Okay, I think I'm going to go with this shape. I'm going to go ahead and go over this with a negative rake scraper now and get it ready to sand. Okay, that should do it. This is lots of chatoyance in this area. I think I mentioned that. Alright, I'm all set to start sanding, and this bark is pretty fragile, so I'm just going to hold the piece and sand it, and I'll turn it by hand, but I'm not going to turn it under power. Once I get that done, then I can run the lathe in reverse at about 400, and I'm going to start with 80 grit and sand up through 400. I've got it all sanded up, and while I was sanding it, I kind of decided I'd use shellac-based sanding sealer and then shellac. I don't have any shellac-based sanding sealer, so I'm going to use Minwax wipe-on poly. At least on the outside. Maybe tomorrow I'll pick up some shellac-based sanding sealer. Or maybe not. Let's see how this looks. Nice and dark. That stripe is going to look really good in there. Okay, well, just have to go with what I had, and this is not a bad finish either. It's one of my favorites. Okay, I'm going to get all the finish on this, and tomorrow I'll be back and we'll have it flipped around. Okay, I've got it flipped around. I'm going to start with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge just to try to take smaller bites of that bark, because it does come off fairly easy. So this should help with that. We're doing about 700 RPM. Okay, let's see where we're at here. That's a little bit thicker than I'd like, so I take just a little bit more off, and we'll have to steepen the angle to clean this up and try to get the same amount of bark going all the way around where we're at. What's going on? I've got this pretty close to what I want, but you can see this is really wide. So the only way to narrow that up is to go from about here and change the angle of what I'm going. If I change the angle to match more of what the outside is, it'll narrow this up. I'm going to switch to the 5/8 now that I'm past that bark, and we'll get the rest of this hollowed out. Go ahead and check this. Alright, that's it. Looks like we're going to have maybe 5/16 thick base. I don't want to take any chance because of the recess there. See if I can clean this up with the negative rake scraper. Alright, I think it's time to sand, and I've just got this really cool looking ring coming around here. It's just nice and bright. It's just going to look pretty amazing, I think. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to sand this up. Okay, the same idea as what I did on the outside. Because of this bark, I really don't want to sand with the lathe spinning up here, but down there it's okay. So I'm going to start just holding the bowl like this with 80 grit. I'll get that sanded up, then we'll go down here with the lathe running forward at around 400 RPM. I'll get it all sanded up to 400, and I'll come back and we'll get a finish on it. Need to clean the bark up. Well, it's time to put the finish on the inside and the bark. So I'm going to start with the bark because it'll probably drip to the inside and splatter like it's doing it. I should darken it up real nice. That's why I'm not doing the inside first, because I'm doing the inside at the same time as I'm doing the bark. And if a little gets on the outside, that's alright. It's got the same finish. It's the Minwax wipe-on poly. It's the oil-based. And I lightly sanded that just in case, so shouldn't be any issues there. Alright, we'll just get some in here and then wipe that down. Oh, look at that. I really sanded this for a long time just because the end grain here was hard to clean up. I had it all sanded to 400, and this is something you want to pay attention to. I saw two very small areas that had tear out, and I resanded the whole thing just to get rid of them. Sometimes they're real easy to miss. That is going to be a really pretty piece of wood when it's got the finish on there. Okay, that's all you get to see. Get all the finish on here. Probably take me the rest of the day. And then we have to deal with that recess. And I'll show you what I almost messed up on that. So when I picked the line to make the recess, it must have been a tool mark that I picked instead of my pencil line. It was too big. I didn't want to open the jaws as far as it needed to be. So I cut it bigger and I used my larger jaws, and it held on just fine. I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up, sanded, signed, and I'll be right back. Well, here it is. I think it turned out pretty nice. I like the looks of it. I love the green in this piece. Got a lot of contrast. Gets really dark on the end, of course. And some really good contrast right here. Got that big, thick, dark bark. I think that looks pretty nice. Just all in all, I'm really happy with it. Finished 8.5 inches by 6 3/4 inches, and it's 3.5 inches tall. Now the walls are pretty thick at about 1/2 of an inch, and I'm going to show you why. If you look up here, there's kind of an oval. Well, I saw that develop as I was cutting, and the deeper I got, the smaller it got. I was afraid if I cut very much more off, I wouldn't have that really nice, bright ring on the outside. Looks like a sinkhole or something in space. I don't know. I just think it looks pretty cool. Actually has kind of a 3D look to it if you look at it this way. I used 5 coats of Minwax wipe-on poly, which is an oil-based. The first coat was put on fairly thick. After it dried, I lightly sanded it with 400, and the next 4 coats I wiped on very thin. And then I would buff it out with the fine Scotch-Brite if needed. When I was all done and the finish was nice and dry, I went over it with X abrasive paste and the polish. And I think it gave it a great finish. Now I know for sure that the pictures will show it a lot better than I can show it here just because of the lighting. So be sure to stick around and watch those pictures so you can see the beauty in this piece. And I know I had a lot of fun making this one, and I sure hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did like the video, do me a favor, click that like button and feel free to leave a comment. Both of those things will really help my channel grow. I do lots of different types of turnings, and you never know what might be next. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. And a special thanks to all my current subscribers. You really mean a lot to me. So, till the next time, see you later.